All right, good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you all to this Maternal Child Health Network presentation, Effective Co-Parenting. Um, I'm Allie Cassidy, the coordinator of the Genesee County Maternal Child Health Network for the Genesee County Health Department. We do these presentations in partnership with the local leadership group of Genesee County and Voices for Children Advocacy Center. So we are so excited that you guys are all here for this co-parenting workshop facilitated by Norman and Dr. Shayla Young of One Love, Two Homes. Before we get started, just want to remind everyone that this is going to be recorded. So we ask that you remain muted during the overall presentation. I know they have some breakout rooms and some interaction worked in, so just stay tuned for that. But feel free to utilize the chat throughout the session for any questions or comments as we go through it. And then I also just ask that you stay until the very end of the session to complete the evaluation for us. We really appreciate your feedback and utilize that as we plan our future sessions. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Norman and Dr. Shayla Young.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Allie. Good morning, everyone. We hope that you were jamming just as hard as we were jamming this morning with our playlist. And that got you ready for the presentation this morning. So I am Dr. Shayla Young. Pleasure to be here with you all today.
And I am Norman Young. I don't have a doctor in front of my name. Apparently a bachelor's degree doesn't get you a title. So yeah, we are honored to be here today. Grateful that you guys are all with us today.
Yes. And so today we're going to be talking about co-parenting with C.A.S.H. But before we go deeply into effective co-parenting strategies, we want to take a moment to just stop and see how you're entering this space today. So we pose the question, how are you showing up to this space today? We know that there is so much going on in the world affecting our lives, our children directly and indirectly. And so let us know in the chat, how are you showing up to this space today? Whether it be words, emojis, symbols, maybe you want to scream through text in the chat, whatever it may be. Let us know. This is a space where we are taking into account how you're showing up. So Norman, while people are putting their answers in the chat, I'm going to ask you, how are you showing up today?
I'm showing up. I'm excited for today. I am. We are grateful to be having this opportunity, and a lot of things we tweaked. So this presentation is tailored just for you guys. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping that it blesses a lot of people. I hope that there's some healing. I hope that they pick up some things to add in their parenting toolbox. So I'm a little turned up. I'm excited today. I am. What about you, Dr. Shayla? How are you feeling today, Dr. Shayla? How are you showing up?
You know, I'm excited. Anytime I have space to share with others and can learn and hear from their stories and experiences, I'm excited. I do have a little bit of a heavy heart just with everything that is going on, especially with what happened in Texas this week. And I do, as I think about this presentation, ultimately being for our children, it does hurt a bit to know that children had to go through that experience, and families. So good and ready, but a little heavy.
A little heavy. Well, I appreciate you being real and being authentic about that. I do. I'm gonna read some of these in the chat. I got some people who are excited. Let me open up my chat better. What do you see, Shayla?
I see some Uniqua is open-minded. Jennifer says she's energized. Let's see. Amanda's excited. Lisa's ready to learn. Okay, thank you. We just love
okay.
Lazaro said he's expecting brilliance and life-sustaining engagement.
Whoa. All right. Standards pretty high there.
He must know he's speaking today too, right?
That's it.
Is that what it is? Okay, all right.
And we got lots tuning in. So we're grateful for that. Thankful, respectful. excited for making positive changes for our family.
Woo,
I salute that.
yes.
I salute that. I salute that.
With a
We are making
busy
changes.
schedule, Ruth is coming in with a busy schedule today. She has a
All right.
lot going on. So we thank you for putting us in that schedule today, Ruth. Um, we appreciate. Tracy said you better be bringing
You better
it.
bring it. Hey, we ready. We're ready. We're
You're
excited.
ready.
I think, and
Yes.
we're ready collectively. You know, those who are here, we're all ready for change. I'm hoping that everyone who enters in this space doesn't leave the same. Something they can add, change in perspective. So I'm excited. I'm excited.
Same here. And also, as we go throughout this presentation, I'm really big on affirmations, especially in a virtual space. So if there's something that you see someone writes in the chat or they say verbally, maybe our panelists or someone who is, participating in this workshop today, give them some like virtual snaps, claps, show it in the screen like, yes, something, because a lot of times it can be hard to navigate virtual spaces,
Yeah.
especially when you're trying to connect with others. So just want to be mindful of that. Now, we appreciate and we respect how you're showing up in this space today. Yet we do have to emphasize that this is about our children. This is about our children. And someone put, I'm ready to make the changes for our family. Yes, understanding that you being here today with us is just one step closer to you making those changes, identifying some of those healthy practices, or maybe even unhealthy practices in co-parenting. But at the end of the day, we do this all for our kids. So as you go throughout this presentation and as you even consider what co-parenting looks like for you right now, don't lose focus. Keep that child lens. So today, in our time together, we're going to share our story. We're going to share our story and our perspective as it relates to co-parenting. We're going to give you a little bit about what co-parenting looks like today. And then we're going to get into the cash because cash rules everything around me. Anybody know who? Anybody know where that's coming
All
from?
right, it's okay. Let's keep it going. Let's keep going.
Okay, no way. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and bring in our experts of lived experience. They're also experts in the field as well. And they're going to do a parent panel. This will be an opportunity for you to hear what other co-parents might be going through, but then also have space to ask questions. Okay, Portia, that's right. That's right. Get the cream. Yes.
All right.
Breakout sessions will follow that, where you'll have some space to dialogue a bit about what might be bubbling up for you during this presentation. But then also we have a little activity for you guys to do in the breakout session. So it's going to be really fun. And then we're going to bring it back to how we started. And that's with having the kid focus. And we'll wrap it up that way.
All right. All right. Norms with Norm. This is how we are asking everyone to show up today, that we are engaged in dialogue, that we're listening and moments of reflection. That's so important. Also, that we're optimistic. Optimism is key when cultivating your co-parenting relationship. The same norms that we're giving you here are norms that you can carry over to your co-parenting relationship. Respect others' contributions, questions, experiences, extension. When someone is saying in a breakout session or they're giving feedback and they say, this is how I feel and this is what I experience, we're going to believe them. It isn't about us trying to poke holes in their story or shift our own perspective on it, but we're just going to appreciate them showing up to the space and being real and authentic. So we're going to believe them when they're saying that's how they feel. Then we're going to say mute when not speaking. It's been 2 years of being in Zooms, and the things that I've heard in the background that I didn't want to hear have happened because people have not muted when they're not speaking. And then don't be the person either when we are speaking. We're allowing people to give feedback when you're speaking and you're forgetting to push the unmute button. I hate waving people like, hey, bro, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. Don't be that person today. Be intentional, click that unmute button when it is time to speak. And then stay authentic, stay real, and stay you. Show up to the space. Practitioners, take the badge off. You are a person first. You're sometimes a parent first, a mom or dad. So whatever you are, show up and being ready to be real and authentic.
Absolutely.
Our story. So this is our beautiful family right here on the right. Our oldest daughter is there in the middle. That is Kennedy. And then our baby girl who will be 1 next month is Gia. And then on the left, my left side of the screen, well, I guess it's everybody's left, is Kennedy's biological mom, her stepdad, baby brother. And Kennedy is the oldest. She is 9 years old. Me and her mom had her obviously 9 years ago, but I remember when she was born, just, I mean, like everything changed. I remember being in that hospital room and being able to lay eyes on her for the first time and just feeling this joy, this love, this I would die for this thing already without having this much time. But it was an instant love. And I just know that I spent so much time, making sure tucking her in at night, reading bedtime story. I work in education. So I know a lot about the importance of reading. So I was trying to be so intentional in parenting, but just being real throughout our parenting. And before the baby was here, her mom had a lot of conflict. Just being young, figuring things out. And we ended up deciding when Kennedy was 1 year old to go our separate ways. And that was a heartbreak to know that I was not going to be able to tuck my daughter in at night every night, feeling like I let her down. Although I knew it was best that me and her mom weren't together and that we co-parent in separate homes, it was still so hard. So I carried a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of hurt. And what I ended up doing is I made my life about my daughter, but in a unhealthy type of way. Everything that I did, I was going to be the dad with the cape on, always ready to go at the drop of a phone call, no matter what was going on. But not necessarily in emergencies. Just my life was hyper focused on my daughter, and that was because of a lot of the shame and guilt that I already had that I was trying to make up for. And to me, I was being, the greatest dad there is. I was doing everything that I needed to do. And then I remember meeting this fine, beautiful young lady by the name of Shayla Young. And as I introduced her into my world, she's seen things a little different. So.
Yeah, so I don't know how many uh, parents we have on this call, and maybe yes, if you could share in the chat if you're a parent, if you're a practitioner, if you're a bonus parent, a grandparent, however co-parenting affects your life, maybe put it in the chat. But I was a person who was coming in to parenting. I didn't have any children of my own at the time. And so one thing that I noticed was, okay, as a supportive adult in Kennedy's life and having this relationship with Norman, there were some boundaries that I needed to be put in place to support me being there too. And then I know that there were boundaries that had been verbalized, but to hold, people accountable to the two of them accountable to those boundaries, I think when you bring in someone else into the scheme of things, that really does show up, right? And so that was one thing that was really important to me early on. And yeah, it was hard. It's still hard. Yeah. But it's a beautiful thing. And one thing I can say is that Kennedy has 4 parents. She has 4 parents, and if you ask her, she'll tell you, because she recognizes, and we all recognize, that we all play a role in her life. And I just remember, Norman, when you talked about like being that super dad who wears the cape and all of that, you don't just live this, but you also do this professionally, right?
I am. So I am a fatherhood coordinator. I run a fatherhood program in Muskegon County. So I get to service 13 different schools. and I focus on fatherhood engagement. And I also focus on fatherhood advocacy. And a lot of the engagement piece is too, not only working with them and their children and teaching them positive ways to engage with their children, but also within co-parenting. So a lot of the practices that we are sharing today is something that I do on a daily basis. And another thing that, you know, within working with dads, the boundaries are always a huge piece. That is a huge piece when I'm looking into working with families and co-parenting, is creating those boundaries. And what Shayla provided was that outside perspective, you know, someone to come in and to look in and say, okay, your daughter's sleeping in the bed with you every night, but she got her own bedroom, or, you know, all of our time is me, you and her, me, you and her. And I was grateful for it, but you know, initially I was very resistant and defensive from a lot of the hurt and the shame that I have from not living in my daughter's home anymore and seeing her every night. So as a fatherhood coordinator, now I'm able to support dads by being an expert of my own experience.
And how One Love Two Homes even got started. This was Norman's original idea, really around him being in that fatherhood coordinator role. And he was hosting his first uh, fatherhood conference in the Muskegon area. And he had this grand idea of all four of us getting up there and talking about co parenting. And at that time, pretty much he was asking us to stuff a lot of the stuff that we were experiencing and go and present this like super successful co-parenting relationship. And the reality was, even on that very day, we got to acknowledge some of our challenges, but our commitment to overcoming them. And so that's why we still, you know, that's why we go so hard with what we do. That's why we're here with you guys this morning, because we too have, you know, we're striving for successful co-parenting.
We are. And before we get to successful co-parenting, when we talk about all presenting together and protecting boundaries, the reason why it isn't all four of us is doing this presentation together right now is because we learned that in order to help people, we had to make sure that ours was taking care of our area, and those things were kind of messing with boundaries. They just could, you know, traveling together, doing these presentations all the time, the sense of communication, and it took the focus off of our daughter. So we are able to still communicate, work together, them still having a peace in One Love Two Homes, but we have, because of our boundaries, this is how we have now chose to share One Love Two Homes.
Absolutely. So when it comes to successful co-parenting, this is it, right?
Yeah, I said, look at that. Look, we got families going to Disney World together. They even got matching shirts.
What?
We got stepmom, stepdad, daddy, mommy. Oh man, we got Alicia Keys and Mashonda right there. Man, they all sitting on the same couch together, really hanging out right there. And then in the top, they got their fist bumps. They got blended families, and then in the corner, they're even taking maternity pictures, almost, you would say. So yeah, this is what they have for successful co-parenting.
Yeah, wow. You know, guys, let me tell you, and I'm not meaning shade in any way to anybody, including ourselves. Oh, but if um if you think that this is successful co-parenting and you want to learn how to get here right now from our story, this is not that. This is not that, because there are some people who achieve this level of co-parenting, and it's a beautiful thing. There are other co-parents who look completely different, and it's still a beautiful thing,
Correct.
right? So we just want to emphasize here, disclaimer, that we're not at a point where we're going on vacations together. And additionally, you know, we come to you all this morning as experts of lived experience.
Yeah.
And you know, we're evidence-based with some of our information that you're going to get, both, you know, by way of research and also lived life, guys.
And when I say I serve as fathers on a daily, a lot of times they just trying to avoid within their co-parenting relationship, just not fighting and turning up outside the daycare and being able to just communicate, to have a conversation without conflict.
Yeah.
That is the goal, that we could just all somehow coexist. You stay on your side, I stay on my side. So that is what a lot of this is how to create a child-focused, healthy co-parenting relationship.
All right. So let's give them what we have, right? Because we think what supports a healthy co-parenting relationship is a little cash, right?
Look, cash always helps, I will say.
All right.
Yeah.
That's right. Little dance break in there.
Hey.
Just a little bit. All right. All right. So the C in cash, let's get going. Cash rules everything around us in co-parenting, right? If our cash ain't right, our co-parenting ain't right. And so
Duality in that.
so we're gonna go ahead and jump right into the C in cash, and you guys can, guess if you like what the C is.
What do you think the C is?
What do you think the C is? I don't know how I feel about holding all this up. I feel like, but what do you think the C is in cash? Okay, Jessica, Cassandra, or Cassandra, y'all got it.
First one kind of easy, I will
Communication.
say.
It is a little easy.
It was
Yes,
easy.
a little easy, a little straightforward there. Communication. Take a moment to just think about how it's been communicating as a parent. I saw in the chat that someone mentioned that they're a parent in an intact home. So when we talk about co-parenting in this presentation, we're referring to having two homes, but there's definitely co-parenting happening in one home, right? And communication is key. Lack of communication has the ability to create conflict, right? So let's get right in. I got a bunch of disclaimers, it sounds like today. The first one is, guys, our children, our beautiful children, are not our messengers. They should not have to carry the load of communicating with an adult because we cannot. Now, this is no shame on your strategy if this is what you're doing, but know that my parents, when they wanted me to communicate something from one house to the next house, there were some things that got lost. I put my own flair in there. I was a teenager, so a lot of things weren't important to me, right? And so the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. When we create, an experience where our children have to communicate what needs to be said to the other parent directly from us, there's an illusion that effective communication has taken place. When in fact, we've all played the telephone game and how ineffective that can be in one person conveying the message that you cannot convey. So here are some critical C's of communication. The first and foremost, and you'll hear us say this numerous times, is to keep a child focused in your communication topics, right? So staying focused on your child. I've seen things where it's like, we wouldn't talk at all if we didn't have this child together, right? Or these children together. So making sure that you honor that with how you talk to one another and what you talk about. Keeping it consistent and continuous. And so consistent is an ongoing thing. Continuous is an ongoing thing. Consistency is more connected to like frequency or how often we do things, right? I know for my mother, and I'm a child, my parents were together for 16 years, married for 11 years. And then when I was about 15 years old, they went their separate ways into two homes. And I have two younger sisters. And one thing I remember so vividly, my mom just keeping the door open with communication with my dad. And then when I graduated high school, he was Black. They ain't had nothing to talk about. They didn't have anything to talk about anymore. No, not saying that has to be you, but making sure there's always opportunity and space to have communication about what is happening with your child. And partly how you do that is keeping it courteous, right? Being courteous with when you call, when you text, when you provide information. I know one thing that was really a struggle for me was hearing something 1 hour, 2 hours before. It was like the worst thing for me. Like, oh my goodness, I need to plan around this. I need to make sure I'm available. And it just wasn't courteous communication happening, and I was feeling the effects of it. But I had to keep it calm and collected. Calm and collected. Calm, cool, collected. Because I don't know about you all, but I understand that my temperament has the ability to influence how a conversation goes. So if this is a, heightened conversation on our list, this is a heightened in emotion type of conversation. If I am able to keep my temperament calm, cool, and collected, chances are that other parent will respond. It might not happen right then and there,
Yeah, that's good.
but being consistent with that temperament has
Yeah.
the ability to transform the communication that you have with the other parent. Um, Anything to say on that, Norman?
No, you hitting it home. I think, like you said, I was always, because of how my setup was, there was no structure in communication. And that's another thing that Shayla helped bring to the table is, so when Shayla was in, when Shayla did become a part of our family, I would call her an hour before, like, oh yeah, Kennedy got a half a day. I need you to run and grab her, knowing that I knew on Wednesday, but because of my schedule. So I think making sure that we have a good line of communication, a direct line of communication is imperative in having a healthy co-parenting relationship. A lack of communication creates conflict.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, communication is one thing we want to keep fat. We want to keep it fat. So, okay, y'all might not be on this yet, but we are acronym people. We want you to take everything away with you. So we got cash, we got
Yeah,
fat, and some others, right? But we want to keep communication fat. Fat is a way for us to be able to really take a step back and assess where are we at with how we communicate.
yeah,
So F stands for frequency. This is about how often are we talking to one another. And again, that consistent and continuous door for communication doesn't mean that it's happening on a daily basis. It just means that it is consistently happening. You guys have to identify what works well for you. And guys, if you're feeling as though we can't even talk to one another, this acronym here is a good first step in developing a communication plan. How do we want to communicate? How often do we want to communicate, and what methods do we want to use? Is it better to text? Is it better to call? What are some of those things that we know we're definitely going to call on? What are some of those things that can be forwarded, an email forward or something of that nature? And so for us, as a 4-person team, there was a lot of just, communication happening between Norman and Kennedy's mom. And me and the stepdad, we were kind of like we were just like, we were responsible to whatever they told us, right? And so we were like, all right, we all need to be in a chat because all of these things are important for us to
yeah.
know.
That's
And
good.
with achieving this type of form of communication, it takes a lot of consistency. And
Correct.
so when someone tries to, text outside of the chat, or something like that, always directing back to the standard that you've created in communication. And so it's not about, oh, I feel this way or I feel that way, so text me here now. But it's about we are upholding the standard that we've agreed upon together. We've co-created this standard. Let's use it. Topics. What are we talking about? And is it directly benefiting our child or children? Now, the reality of it is that things can get off topic, especially when you feel like you have to be friends and co-parenting. You don't necessarily have to call the other parent to talk about your life if it does not directly benefit your child. So some of those topics that are key to discuss: education. What's going on in our child's education experience? How are they doing at school? What have you noticed? Here's the homework assignment. Don't forget to do that. And then what is the best way to achieve that, right? So understanding that when you want to assess where your communication is, that looking at the frequency, how you're achieving communication, and the topics that you're discussing are key.
Okay.
And I actually want to note that this was adapted from a study that was done in 2015. Their acronym, well, it wasn't an acronym, but their the different areas that they were looking to research were called FRT. And so I ended up making it FAT for the sake of this presentation because it's a little bit easier to digest. And it's catchy enough to take with you and not forget. So.
Because she loves acronyms.
All right. So now we're getting into the A. Any guesses about what the A is?
What is the A going to do? And I do want to throw in there while they're doing that, that you don't have to use a group text message too. There are apps out there to support forms of communication between co-parents. One that we use for dads that I serve was We Parent. So there are several ones out there. Some of them cost, do your research, but it's another platform to communicate. All right, nobody wanted to guess the A. Right. It ain't as easy as communication. Okay.
The A is
for accountability.
Accountability.
Mm-hmm. All right.
To be specific as possible. We want to be, as fathers, be specific and intentional as possible when it comes to that parenting time when you have a distance. Yeah. You have to be we have to be intentional. So great question as far as what have we done to overcome it? My children's school schedules. I'm not in the same city and state, but I talk to the teachers. I go to my ex-wife has a parenting teacher conference, and I have my parenting teacher conference with the teacher. I get the school newsletter just like every parent that stays in the school district. I know what's happening the week of their class, so when we talk, I'm trying to again close that time frame. So it's hey, I saw you did this in art, or you all covered this in math. How did you do? Instead of waiting on, well, how was your day? You know what's finna happen with how was your day? It's after school. I don't want to talk about school. I want to watch YouTube and play video games. Nothing against you, Dad, but you're not here. And so my attention span as a child, and if you have encouragement from the other end, it can be a little more readily addressed. That's it. But when you might feel for the people that might feel that they're fighting an uphill battle with trying to be more intentional, but don't have that support, again, that's not an opt-out. Yeah.
Dad movement. All right, that is a podcast that I do with fathers, just to highlight stories, roses and thorns of fatherhood. That's what I call it. And that was a good friend of mine, Mickey, and he's talking about his co-parenting relationship. And I thought it was a great segue into the accountability conversation. All right, being accountable. First, you have to look internally. A lot of times when we're working with other parents, you might just have one parent that shows up and wanting to create a healthier co-parenting relationship, but know that one parent is all that it takes to get it going. So my first one is, am I doing all that I can to make sure that I am co-parenting effectively, right? That's not just between me and mom, but that's me and child as well. Am I showing up? Am I being consistent? How is my communication? If I say I'm going to do something, am I doing that? Am I following through? And then I'm doing that inventory check as well. What hurt am I still battling that I'm bringing to the table? What fears, what shame and guilt am I bringing to the table? All you can control is yourself in co-parenting. But if you do the best that you can, that helps create a better co-parenting environment. And things don't happen by chance. They only happen by choice. You have to choose to be intentional. You have to choose to be accountable. But it is so much work, is what people say. It is so much work, but it's so worth it. Our kids deserve it. So making sure that you're always looking internally, doing that inventory check, knowing where you stand so that you can continue to be better. Next, moving on. Yeah, I got the acronym ICE. Shayla made me do an acronym. Now we're being consistent. You must be consistent and you must follow through. It is essential when trying to create a healthier co-parenting relationship. Whenever I meet with dads, I always ask them, what have you agreed to do and have you been doing it? Not, well, I was doing it, but then she stopped doing this or he stopped doing that. No, but what did you agree to do on? What have you told your children you were going to do? Follow through with what you're saying you're going to do. Not being hyper focused on the other party, but also focusing on what you agreed to doing. So that is very important in having that accountability piece. It's also important that you set the example. You have to set the standard. How to choose and how to operate as a co-parent. You have to be the thermostat and not the thermometer. Shayla mentioned that earlier. I know co-parenting gets real. It's hard. Sometimes, when you're co-parenting with a precious child that you're very protective of, it is easy to offend the other person, and it's easy for temperaments to flare, right? It is. This is a personal thing. We're talking about parenting. But I always have to choose to know how I'm going to show up, that I'm going to remain calm, that I'm going to be intentional on what I say. When you say things, they plant a seed. And it is hard to uproot those things. A lot of hurt, a lot of pain, it's probably already there. What I see when you see a split up, that trauma of splitting up. So it is so important that we are the example of what we want the co-parenting to look like. It's not an immediate change. When we were talking about setting boundaries, these are things that we had to take place. It was something that we had to adapt and to implement. And then when we started to do them, not by week 2, not by the second month, but with time, there started to be a change. There started to be a shift, and what us creating healthier co-parenting standard then became the standard in our relationship. So looking internally, being consistent, and being the example is how you focus on accountability. All you can focus on is you. Be the best that you can, show up, be consistent and set the example.
All right. Thank you for that. So you've heard the C and the A of C.A.S.H. Let's get into the S, which is setting boundaries. This is something that was really important to me coming in as a bonus parent, as you would call it. Kennedy calls me Mumsy, so I'll refer to myself as Mumsy. But coming in as Mumsy, it was so important that boundaries were in place so that I felt that I actually had a role here. And what we found out is that boundaries, although we were hyper focused on them being for us, it really was for Kennedy at the end of the day. It helped to give her consistency, and she knew what to expect in going from one home to the next and vice versa. And so there is a whole book on just relationships, family and relationships. And out of that book, there is a bunch of different studies that are there, different things that have been done to really see how parents shift. And specifically, the quote that I have up here was in a study that wanted to see how parents operated after divorcing or separating. And so one thing that is so important to know, and I know this firsthand, is that a shift in a family structure really does require the reorganization of boundaries, the clarification of new roles and expectations. When it comes to making a child, let's be real, intimacy happened, whether it was for a long period of time in a marriage or an extended relationship, or whether it was, on the other end of the spectrum of, hey, we met one night. There's an intimate, exchange that happens between two different people to build or to have a child, or, we're talking more so adoptive parents, right? There's a connection that happens when you are bringing a child into this world. And so when you have to reorganize what that looks like, it is important to have clarification and expectations. An area of common boundaries here, you see 4 common boundaries. This is a good way to build self-awareness and understanding, okay, what is it that needs to be done as I shift in my role and as I shift in the way I interact with this parent? What are my boundaries? How do I build self-awareness? This is a good place to start. Looking at physically, okay, if we didn't have a positive relationship, maybe it was, what they call now toxic relationship, maybe it was physically violent even. What makes me feel physically safe when interacting with this person? Where are my moral boundaries? Where are my emotional boundaries? And financial boundaries are one of those areas where you can have the courts that determine, okay, this is a child support cost, or this is how much a parent is supposed to say, this is parenting time. But then you also have some of those informal financial needs where, hey, I want my daughter to play soccer this year. Can we go half on that? Or she really wants these shoes, or she really wants to do this for her birthday. How might we support one another financially? And what are some no's for me financially? What are some yeses? And so understanding that with setting boundaries, it is a process. Those boundaries do get tested, but then they do get respected over time. And so know that when approaching setting boundaries with your not significant, but with your co-parent, sorry, with your co-parent, know that it is important to practice self-awareness. That's a good place to start when developing those boundaries. Additionally, know that you have to create boundaries on how you will parent, how you will co-parent, right? So these are the types of conversations we're not going to have in front of our child. These are the things that we're not going to speak on to our child, right? We don't want to, create different areas where children are experiencing trauma or stress because of how their parents communicate and interact with each other. So setting those boundaries, again, aren't just for us, it's for them at the end of the day, our children.
Yeah, and two, one thing that we implemented, and one of the first things I do when I'm working with the family with co-parenting is that boundaries as far as the pickup and drop off. Something so simple, but it's a boundary that is so important that is set. So a lot of times what we do is we call it almost parking lot parenting. A lot of times, the only time we're really having face-to-face interaction, if it's not a soccer game or a dance recital with the other set of parents, we're meeting at a parking lot to exchange. What that does is we're not meeting at each other's home, because that is your home. That is your safety net. That is your place of peace, right? So to keep things healthy, we meet at a parking lot. And if you're coming from a lot of conflict, a fresh breakup, one thing that I suggest is to switch off parenting at a local fire station or police report. It's just something that I've seen that's become very beneficial. Sometimes you'll see them when parents are figuring out some of the legal aspect of co-parenting. It's in making sure that you're at a safe place of when you're exchanging the child.
Yeah, and even understanding that if we keep testing each other's boundaries, we might need a third party. You might need a mediator. She might have to go to grandma's house to be picked up because we both feel comfortable with grandma, or something like that too. So.
Okay, I see we have some mediators. Someone said that they were a mediator in the chat, so who is here joining with us today. So
yeah, awesome.
All right.
So now we're at the H.
All right, what do you think the H is? One of the most important parts of co-parenting and C.A.S.H. Any guesses? Wait, let's see a guess. See if somebody gonna get this one.
Okay.
Honesty. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Honesty.
Honesty.
Honesty is the best policy.
I knew you were gonna say that. Healthy. Okay. Okay, Casey.
Healthy.
Good try.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'll get one more because I don't want them to guess it. They guess yours. Mine ain't.
Happy. Y'all not gonna. This one about to blow them out. You ready?
You ready?
All
Let's get it. Humility. Good one. Healing. Healing. That picture is hilarious. It is hilarious.
Have y'all
It's a little
seen
intense, but I get the message. I get the message.
it? All right.
All right. Healing.
Since
We're gonna listen to Mickey again.
it's not easy, but like I say, I'm an advocate.
How about we start it over? I couldn't really hear it. Can we start it over, please?
Trauma is trauma.
All right. Thank you.
Organic growth, man. It's not easy, but like I say, I'm an advocate of therapy, y'all. I recommend it. Trauma is trauma is trauma. Your daddy didn't have to beat you for you to have some trauma. Your mama didn't have to go to prison for you to be having some trauma.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You didn't have to grow up in a drug culture to have trauma. A divorce, a separation from your children is traumatic.
I got PTSD for real.
To love somebody enough to give birth to bring life into this world, then to separate is traumatic.
It is.
So I'm gonna turn it over to you, but that's how I deal with it, no?
Philosopher Mickey, that is my guy. So that podcast, the link to that is going to be at the end. It is going to be a resource for you guys. It's a really good episode. And he brought us some really key points. Healing. I love the picture and how we have it set up here, but if I had to switch anything, it would almost be like a seed. Forgiveness breeds something, unforgiveness breeds something. There's a fruit that comes from each one of them. And that's what I was hoping that this picture represented. So being honest, when you are splitting up, like Mickey said, when you are separating, there's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of pain, whether it was a one night hookup and then there was a baby out of it, or whether it was a marriage or a relationship, whatever the dynamics were, a child is born. And in that process, there's a lot of things to unpack. And there's many layers to healing, but I believe forgiveness and unforgiveness are the most important pieces, right? Those are the biggest seeds. When you have unforgiveness, there's a lot of shame and there's a lot of guilt. That's what I walked around with. And that shame and guilt doesn't just spill over to how you feel about yourself, but it spills over to your co-parenting relationship. It does. It messes with a lot of your confidence as a parent and how you see yourself. How you see yourself is really a lot of times how you show up in parenting. When you do forgive and you're not walking in that shame and guilt, there is some freedom that comes in that. There is some freedom in forgiving yourself. It's okay. You can have a child that feels loved and supported and is going to walk into everything that they were called to walk into by still co-parenting in separate homes. Forgiveness gives you that new perspective. It is like blinders taken off when you're in freedom and forgiveness. I don't see the person the same way who I was co-parenting with. It's, hey, things didn't work out, but we have a child. How do we do what's best? It changes that lens off of the person and it focuses on the child. You got to forgive. I can't stress it enough. Forgiveness also allows you to give grace to yourself. This whole presentation is a cover of grace. You have to give grace. This thing doesn't happen overnight. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be slip-ups. I shouldn't have wrote that. I shouldn't have said that. But when you have forgiveness, you're able to give grace, and that is needed in co-parenting. And there is a peace that surpasses understanding than that forgiveness. You have to forgive for that peace to be able to parent in the present and not in the past of what you thought it was going to be or what you felt it should have been. That's what forgiveness will allow. That unforgiveness brings that ugly anger, that bitterness. I see it. Practitioners, you see it when you're interacting with two sets of parents, and sometimes that anger from the past relationship, it shows up in the child's education. It shows up in trying to have any conversation that brings up the other name of the other parent. Unforgiveness is blinding. You will have a deficit focus and just negativity. It's a very negative focus on parenting if you're doing it in unforgiveness. And it may not be on the child. It may be just on the other parent. But the thing about unforgiveness is that seed, you don't know where it sprouts at. You don't know where the fruit is going to hang over. So sometimes you may think that it's just going towards the other parent, but it very well can intermingle in your relationship with your child. Unforgiveness is acting out of hurt. There's still hurt in forgiveness still. Sometimes those wounds still hurt. Let's just be real. They do. But when you're not forgiving, you will act out of hurt. To be the blow ups, the cussing out, the anger, the bitterness. So if anything that you get out of this healing is forgiveness is a choice. It's not because the other person deserves it, but it is what's needed. It is a necessity when you're talking about co-parenting. It's not easy. It's hurtful, but it can be done and it has to be done to have a healthy co-parenting relationship. Oh, thank you, Mecca. Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Awesome. All right. So we just gave y'all some cash. We just gave y'all some cash, 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 cash. Now it's time to switch gears into our experts of lived experience, our parent panel, y'all. So at this time, we're going to stop sharing our screen and we are going to pin our three panelists here, our three amazing panelists. Like, look at their action shots. Like,
look at that.
I'm so excited. So, if we can have all of our panelists at this time, we could have all of our panelists actually come, off of, camera.
Show your
Video.
video.
Yeah,
There we go.
your video on. There
There's
we go.
Marielle. Look at Marielle.
Yes,
Okay, got
there
the
we
tracksuit
go.
on.
Awesome.
Right.
And then I think we're looking for Casey. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right into the panel. This is a lot. Co-parenting is a lot of work, and just highlighting the journeys of our panelists, man, it's like, from 6 years to 15 years, like it is a lot, and it's an ongoing process of improvement. And so we just commend you all for being here today, because what that shows is that you are committed to that improvement. You are committed to making sure the conditions of co-parenting are good so that you can show your child all the love, the joy, the opportunity, the time that they need and deserve, right? So, man, we have just had such an amazing, blessed experience with y'all this morning into afternoon. Norman, I'm gonna give it to you to sign us off, and then
Okay. Yep. No. Yep. If you want to pull up the PowerPoint, and we'll just kind of finish it off there for the screen, just for our information, how to stay in contact. Some of the things, the resources that we shared today. We have the Dad Movement, which is a podcast that I do that focuses on the roses and thorns of parenting. And Kennedy's video, you guys are the first to see that we are still editing that, making it sure that we're sharing things that she felt comfortable sharing too. We don't want to exploit her, but we are working on making sure that she feels comfortable, that she can watch it. And she said, that's what I want to show. So that will be coming soon. We are grateful for this opportunity with you guys. We encourage you to give yourself grace, give each other grace, to forgive, to really take the time to self-assess and say, am I being forgiving of myself, to the other parent and even the child in the situation? So
yeah. And also, we've seen in the chat a lot of people say, wow, I wish my parents could see this. I wish, this was available. We'd love to stay connected. So please take down our email address. And we'd love to be able to bring our presentation, our lived experience to your community, to be able to connect with parents, because at the end of the day, this is about our young people and our children thriving, as well as our families thriving, right? And so when you got on too, you heard some music playing because it was Friday morning and we needed that little boost, right? We created a playlist for you guys, and it's on Spotify. So we will put the link in the chat. But these are the songs that we listened to, that we thought about in preparing this presentation specifically for you all. It's a thank you. It's actually something I learned from Nakaya Johnson, another sister of the Young family, and so she taught me this method, and it's just a way to personalize this for you guys. So we will put that in the chat.
Yeah.
We're gonna turn it over to Allie.
Yeah, special thanks to Genesee County, and Allie did a phenomenal job of making this happen. She was so supportive in helping us create the One Love, Two Home experience online. It is different from doing it in person, but
Yeah.
we would not have chosen to do it with any other group than Genesee County. And we thank you, Elena, for your support in making this happen.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. I just was watching the chat through this whole presentation. So it clearly this was something that our community and the greater community around the state needed as well. So I'm so glad that we were able to work together and put this on. And you guys did a great presentation. I really appreciate all of the sharing, all of the transparency. That was super great. So anyone that was here, we will be sending out a recording. I'm going to work with them on what parts we're going to share, just to make sure that we protect parents and the children that were spoken about. We just want to be mindful of that. But you will be getting some kind of recording in the next week or so, as well as the contact information, and I'll send the link to the playlist as well so that you can have that. I just ask that you can fill out the Google form evaluation. I threw that into the chat for you guys. Completely anonymous. We're just asking if you're a parent, bonus parent, if you're a practitioner, and then some takeaways that you got out of this presentation to help us moving forward. But otherwise, if you guys want to close it out, we are good.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Disconnect, turn those phones off, stop checking the emails. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the break. Enjoy the time with your children. Be intentional with your family. Love, forgive, give grace, and take care.